Have you ever felt like people's words had too much power over you? Like a single criticism could ruin your day, or one sarcastic comment could spiral you into self-doubt? If so, you're not alone. Most people live their lives trapped in emotional reactions, constantly seeking approval, fearing rejection, and carrying the weight of other people's opinions. But what if I told you that none of that has to control you anymore? In this video, you're going to discover how to become emotionally unshakable using the timeless wisdom of Carl Jung. We'll break down practical, powerful exercises that will help you identify your emotional triggers, master your inner voice, and stop giving others the power to define your worth. You'll learn how to turn criticism into self-discovery, how to face change without fear, and how to stop living for others' approval. By the end of this video, you won't just feel inspired, you'll be equipped with the exact tools to take your power back and live with clarity, confidence, and peace. If you've ever struggled to stay grounded when life shakes you, this might be the most important video you watch this year. So, stay with me until the end. This could change everything. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to stay updated on all our latest content. Applying Carl Jung's philosophy to become truly unshakable. Have you ever found yourself spiraling after someone's rude comment or judgmental tone? Maybe you couldn't stop replaying their words in your head, feeling small, ashamed, or even furious. If that sounds familiar, I want to gently tell you you're not alone. Most of us, at some point, give away our peace to someone else's opinion. But Carl Jung's philosophy gives us a sacred key to reclaiming that peace. You see, Jung believed that other people's words only have as much power over us as we allow them to. It sounds simple, right? But applying that truth in our daily lives, especially when we feel misunderstood, criticized, or dismissed, is one of the hardest and most powerful acts of emotional maturity. And here's the core truth that strikes me to the heart every time I revisit Jung's teachings. Knowledge without practice is meaningless. We can read quotes all day, nod in agreement, and even recite them. But if we crumble the moment someone disapproves of us, then we haven't truly integrated the wisdom. And honestly, I say this with love, we all need to go deeper. Imagine this, you're in a conversation, and someone says something that cuts deep. Maybe they question your competence, your worth, or even your values. Your heart skips, your stomach tightens, and you feel the fire of anger or the sting of shame. That first wave of emotion, it's natural. But what you do next is everything. This is where Jung's wisdom becomes our armor. The moment you pause just a breath and ask yourself, am I truly upset by what they said or by what it triggers inside me? That's the gateway to transformation. That single question opens up space between you and your pain. And in that space, you take back your power. Let me be honest here. This practice isn't glamorous. It doesn't come with applause or recognition. It's often done in silence, behind closed doors, in the stillness of your thoughts. But it's soul work. It's where you choose healing over ego, peace over pride. Jung once said, when you face a crisis, your first reaction shows the level of control you have over yourself. That quote shakes me every time. It reminds me that our gut reactions are like emotional mirrors reflecting how much of ourselves we've truly integrated. If we lash out, shut down, or seek revenge, we're still living in a wounded space. But if we can breathe, reflect, and choose to respond with calm awareness, that's where emotional strength is born. So what can we do to get there? First, we must transform how we interpret reality. When someone criticizes you, instead of reacting like it's a personal attack, see it as a spiritual exercise. It might sound strange, but criticism can be a gift in disguise, a flashlight pointing to areas of growth we didn't know we needed. If someone says, "You're too sensitive, you can crumble or you can reflect," is there a part of me that needs gentler boundaries? Or am I letting others define me unfairly? It doesn't mean blindly accepting every word people throw at you. No, it means being strong enough to separate truth from projection and wise enough to learn without losing your sense of self. Jung believed the external world mirrors our internal world. So if you constantly fear judgment, if you're always looking over your shoulder for someone's approval or disapproval, then maybe there's a part of your soul that hasn't yet felt fully accepted by you. And that's the part that needs the most love. Here's something deeply healing. Take out a notebook and write down the words that hurt you the most when others say them. Not just words, but wounds. You're not enough. You're a failure. You'll never be loved. Whatever they are, write them down. Then ask yourself, why does this hurt so much? What wound is this poking at? This isn't just journaling, it's soul excavation. It's you becoming aware of the hidden places that still ache. And once you see them, you can start giving them the compassion they never received. That's where healing begins. Another piece Jung emphasized is the power of self-image. I believe this with all my heart. When you know who you are, other people's opinions feel like passing winds, not storms. Picture someone you admire for their unshakable confidence. Do you think they lie awake at night dissecting every piece of feedback they get? Absolutely not, because their worth isn't hanging on the fragile thread of public opinion. So here's your exercise. Define yourself in one powerful sentence. Maybe it's, I am a resilient, evolving soul committed to truth and love. Maybe it's simpler. Whatever it is, speak it like a prayer. Whisper it when doubts come. Repeat it when someone tries to reduce you to a label or a judgment. Jung warned against identifying too much with roles like I'm a CEO, or I'm a wife, or I'm a creative. Because when we attach our identity to these roles, any threat to them feels like a threat to us. But when we anchor ourselves in a deeper truth, I am a soul, constantly learning, constantly growing, we find safety within, no matter what changes around us. One of the most overlooked yet profound practices is changing your inner dialogue. You could be the most successful person in the room, but if your internal voice says you're not good enough, you'll still feel empty. Words become beliefs. Beliefs become identity. That's why we have to challenge the narratives that tear us down. The next time you catch a harsh inner voice, stop and ask, is this true? 9 times out of 10, it's not. It's just a memory, a fear, a voice you picked up long ago that no longer belongs to you. Jung said, what you think repeatedly becomes your reality. So speak to yourself with the tenderness you needed as a child. Be the loving voice you always wished someone had been for you. And finally, let's talk about emotional detachment. This isn't about being cold or indifferent. No, it's about refusing to let your peace be tossed around by the ever-changing tides of public opinion. If today you're praised and tomorrow you're criticized, should your self-worth rise and fall with every wave? Not. Your emotional well-being should be rooted like a tree, deep, steady, unmovable, because the truth is, the world will always have something to say. But you get to choose whether you listen, whether you absorb it, whether you let it define you. Jung reminds us that true freedom begins the moment you stop needing validation from others. And I believe this deeply. When you walk in your truth, even if no one claps, even if no one agrees, you still shine. So today, choose to shine. Quietly, boldly, unapologetically. Let Jung's wisdom become the compass that leads you back home to yourself. The path to becoming emotionally unshakable. Gabriel's awakening through Jungian wisdom. Exercise. Every time someone criticizes or praises you, pause, take a deep breath, and gently whisper in your mind, this doesn't define me. I know who I am. This isn't about ignoring people or pretending their words don't exist. No, this is about choosing not to let them dominate your identity, your peace, or your self-worth. One of the biggest emotional traps many of us fall into, myself included, is the urge to change someone's opinion about us. When someone judges us, when they belittle us, when they question our worth, there's a natural reflex inside that wants to fight back, to prove them wrong. We want to say, you don't know me, or you're wrong about me. But let's be brutally honest here. No matter how eloquently you speak or how hard you try, You cannot control how another person perceives you. Carl Jung offered a life-altering truth. Each person sees you not as you are, but as they are. Their opinion of you is filtered through their wounds, their insecurities, their envy, and their confusion. If they carry bitterness inside, they'll project it onto you. If they feel threatened, they'll try to shrink you. That has nothing to do with you and everything to do with them. Exercise. The next time someone throws unfair judgment your way, try this. Before reacting, before letting anger or shame take over, ask yourself, am I seeing their truth? Or am I witnessing their projection? The moment you understand this deeply, external opinions start losing their grip. They fade into the background, like distant noise you no longer need to respond to. And here's something else I've learned on my journey. Emotional pain loves the past and the future, but rarely lives in the present. When someone criticizes us, what do we often do? We overthink. We analyze their words for hours, sometimes days. We replay the scene. We dissect our reactions. But what good does that do? It just steals our now. Exercise. Every time your mind starts spiraling back to a painful conversation or imagining a future confrontation, stop, breathe. Say out loud with courage and love, that's over. I let it go now. Jung taught that true peace is not found in changing reality, but in accepting it. That doesn't mean you give up or settle, it means you make peace with what is, instead of tormenting yourself with what could have been. And now, let's bring this all to life. I want to tell you a story that feels so real, so relatable, you might just see a part of yourself in it. Gabriel's story, from emotional chaos to calm power. Gabriel was like so many of us. He worked hard, sometimes too hard. But no matter how much effort he put in, his boss always seemed dissatisfied. There was always something wrong, a missed detail, a lack of initiative. And each comment, each critique, felt like a small dagger to the heart. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. At home, things didn't feel much safer. His partner, Carolina, had grown distant. One night, she looked at him with tired eyes and asked, "You've been acting strange lately. What's going on with you?" Gabriel didn't have the words. He just felt off, like he was being pulled in too many directions. Like he was constantly trying to prove something to everyone, but never quite measuring up. So he lied. "I'm just tired," he said. But deep down, the truth was louder. He was letting other people's opinions shape his entire identity. Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That was Gabriel's reality. He didn't know that the pain wasn't coming from his boss or Carolina. It was coming from within, from the places inside himself he had never dared to face. One gray afternoon, after another frustrating day at work, Gabriel found himself wandering into a quiet bookstore. His heart was heavy, and he didn't even know why he walked in. But something deeper inside was looking for answers. As he scanned the shelves, a title caught his eye like a lifeline, "The Ego and the Unconscious" by Carl Jung. He didn't hesitate. He bought it, not entirely knowing why, and went home with a quiet urgency. That night, he opened the book, and with every page, something inside him shifted. Jung spoke of the shadow, the hidden parts of ourselves we're too afraid to look at. And suddenly, Gabriel saw clearly. His shadow was insecurity. He had spent years building an identity around proving his worth. Every criticism felt like confirmation that he wasn't enough. Every distant glance felt like abandonment. But none of it was true. It was just the mirror of his eyes. Then he read a sentence that stopped him cold. "What irritates us most about others is a reflection of something unresolved within ourselves." And that was it. That was the moment. If his boss's words crushed him, it was because deep down, he feared he wasn't good enough. If Carolina's silence stirred doubt, it was because his confidence depended entirely on her validation. Gabriel closed the book and breathed deeply. For the first time, he didn't push the feeling away, he held it. He owned it. And that was the beginning of everything. The next day at work, when his boss pointed out yet another flaw, Gabriel didn't shrink. He didn't lash out. He simply said, "Thanks for the feedback. In which specific area would you like me to improve?" The boss looked surprised, maybe even a little thrown off. "I'd like to see you take more initiative in projects." "Got it," Gabriel replied calmly. And something shifted. Not in the room, but inside Gabriel. For once, he wasn't reacting. He was choosing his response. He wasn't defined by someone else's opinion. He was reclaiming his power. Later that evening, Carolina studied his face. "You seem different," she said. "More at peace." Gabriel smiled. "I think I'm finally learning how to not let things affect me so deeply." Her eyes softened. "That sounds freeing." "It is," he said. "And the best part, anyone can do it." In the days that followed, Gabriel kept practicing. When a coworker tried to provoke him, he paused. He noticed the irritation, acknowledged it, and let it pass. He remembered Jung's teaching. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our freedom to choose. Gabriel started choosing peace. He stopped trying to win arguments. He stopped needing to be right. He stopped letting people live rent-free in his mind. And as he did, he noticed something strange. People responded differently to him, some with confusion, some with respect, but it didn't matter, because he was no longer performing for anyone. When his boss later praised his improved focus, Gabriel nodded with quiet strength. "Thank you," he said. "I've been working on that." And he meant it. That night, Gabriel read another quote from Jung. "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." He underlined it, sat back, and smiled. He wasn't the same man anymore. He wasn't chasing approval or fearing rejection. He was becoming rooted, grounded, free. And the question that lingered in his heart as he drifted off to sleep was simple, profound, and powerful. If I've come this far already, what else is possible now that I'm free? Gabriel's awakening, the final test of inner freedom. The days passed, and something inside Gabriel felt undeniably different. Not just a temporary shift, not a fleeting burst of motivation, but a deep, irreversible transformation. He could feel it in the way he walked, in the way he breathed, in the stillness of his thoughts. He was no longer a prisoner of other people's moods or words. He had grown stronger. Not loud, aggressive strength, but a quiet, anchored strength. A kind of unshakable presence that no longer needed to seek approval or dodge criticism. For the first time in his life, he was standing firmly in himself. Before, Gabriel's emotional world was like a pendulum swinging wildly, depending on how others treated him. If someone praised him, he felt on top of the world. If someone criticized or ignored him, his confidence would collapse like a house of cards. He had lived this way for years, unknowingly handing people the keys to his peace. But now he knew better. Now he understood something sacred. His worth did not depend on anyone else's perception. Not his boss's, not Carolina's, not the world's. Only his own. One quiet afternoon, as sunlight spilled through the kitchen window, Carolina turned to him and asked a question that might have once triggered anxiety. "Gabriel, what would you do if someone talked badly about you behind your back?" He paused, then smiled calmly, without a trace of tension. "You mean if they slandered me or made something up?" "Yes," she replied, clearly curious. There was a time when that idea alone would have kept Gabriel up at night, turning over scenarios in his mind. What did they say? Who heard it? Will they believe it? But not anymore. That version of him no longer existed. "If what they say is false," Gabriel said gently, "then it doesn't matter, because it isn't real. And if what they say is true, it still doesn't matter, because I've already accepted that truth in myself." Carolina stared at him, visibly surprised. "That sounds radical." Gabriel's eyes softened. "Doesn't it sound like freedom?" And truly it was. Carl Jung once said, The things we give power to are the things that control us. Gabriel had spent most of his life giving power to the voices around him. But now, he had stripped those voices of their control. He'd stopped feeding the illusions and started living from within. But, as life often does, it wasn't long before his growth was tested in the real world. A week later, during a tense work meeting, a colleague made a passive-aggressive jab. "Well, let's hope Gabriel doesn't make the same mistakes as before," Javier chuckled, nudging another co-worker as others laughed softly. Gabriel felt a jolt in his chest. That old reaction, the sting, the defensiveness tried to rise again. His heart beat faster for a moment. The old him would have felt humiliated, would have shut down or retaliated, or worse, said nothing and swallowed the shame. But not this time. He took a breath and reached for a higher response. He remembered Jung's powerful words, "Nothing external can harm you unless you allow it." With a soft smile, Gabriel turned to Javier and said calmly, "You're right. We all make mistakes. What matters is that we learn from them." The room fell silent. The jab had been neutralized, not with aggression, but with grace. There was no escalation, no wounded pride, no need to retaliate. Just clarity, composure, and maturity. Javier didn't know what to say. His attempt at embarrassment had landed on someone who no longer needed validation and no longer feared judgment. That moment marked a quiet but profound turning point. And Gabriel knew it. That night, as he strolled alone beneath the city lights, he reflected on what had just happened. Something sacred had changed, not just in how he spoke, but in how he saw himself. His happiness, once chained to the approval of others, now belonged only to him. Jung once said, "True power is not in controlling others, it's in refusing to let anyone control you." And Gabriel was beginning to understand what that truly meant, not just intellectually, but in the depths of his lived experience. When he returned home, Carolina greeted him with a knowing smile. "How was your day?" Gabriel smiled softly. "Let's just say, I discovered what it feels like to be truly free." She tilted her head with curiosity. "What's that like?" "It's like everything that used to worry me suddenly lost its weight. Like I stopped needing the world to approve of me to feel whole." Carolina took his hand, her voice warm. "I love seeing you like this." Gabriel felt her words settle into his chest. Peacefully, not as validation but as a reflection. He remembered another one of Jung's insights. He who finds himself ceases to be a slave to others. That night, he slept more deeply than he had in years. Not because everything was perfect, but because he no longer needed perfection to feel safe. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment number 2 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. But life, in its mysterious wisdom, doesn't let us rest for long. When we think we've mastered a lesson, it comes back in a new form, just to be sure. And for Gabriel, that test came one quiet afternoon. While finishing a report in his office, he received an unexpected email. "Gabriel, please see me in my office. It's urgent." It was from his boss. The old Gabriel would have spiraled. His thoughts would have jumped to conclusions. Am I in trouble? Did I mess up? What now? But this version of Gabriel simply took a breath, saved his work, and closed his laptop. When he walked into the office, his boss's face was serious. "Close the door and have a seat." Gabriel sat down, calm and composed. "We're making staff cuts," his boss began. "And unfortunately, your position has been affected." There it was. The news that might have shattered him before. The fear of the unknown, the financial worry, the sense of rejection. It was all right there, waiting to consume him. But it never did. Gabriel nodded gently. "I understand." His boss blinked, surprised. "Don't you have anything to say?" Gabriel met his gaze. "I can't control this decision. I can only control how I respond to it." The room went still. His boss leaned back in his chair, visibly thrown off. "I have to admit," he said, "this is not the reaction I expected. Most people would be upset, maybe even angry. Gabriel smiled slightly. Not long ago, I would have been one of them. And it was true. He had once lived from fear. But now? Now he lived in freedom. That evening, as he walked home under a sky turning gold, he felt no bitterness, no anger, only clarity. He had lost a job, but he hadn't lost himself. Jung said, "Everything that happens in life serves the purpose of your evolution." And Gabriel could see that now. This wasn't the end. It was a doorway, the end of one identity and the birth of something greater. When he got home and told Carolina what had happened, she looked at him with wide eyes. "And you're not worried?" He shook his head gently. "Would worrying change anything?" She was quiet, then slowly smiled. "You've changed." He took her hand. "For the first time in my life, I admire the man I've become." And in that moment, he knew no matter what life brought next, he had already won the greatest battle of all. He had found himself, and he would never again give that self away. That night, before Gabriel drifted off to sleep, a powerful quote echoed in his mind, one that had become a guiding light on his journey of self-mastery. "We cannot prevent the storm from coming, but we can learn not to be swept away by it," Carl Jung. And suddenly, everything he had lived through made sense. Life, he realized, would always bring uncertainty. There would always be loss, betrayal, disappointment, misunderstandings, things beyond our control. But what if the real strength wasn't in avoiding those storms, but in standing through them with grace, with presence, and with the unwavering belief that nothing outside of us can truly break us? That's the freedom Gabriel had found. The very next morning, instead of curling up under the weight of loss, instead of letting the layoff define him or drown him in self-pity, he made a different choice. He got up earlier than usual. He shaved, ironed his favorite shirt, and put on the outfit that made him feel most alive. Not to impress anyone, but to honor himself, to honor the new man he had become. Then he walked to a nearby cafe, carrying only a pen, his worn leather-bound notebook, and a sense of peace he never thought he'd experience. As he sipped his coffee and watched the city wake up, something settled within him. Not excitement, not urgency, completion. It felt like something had clicked into place. He wasn't chasing anymore. He wasn't running from fear. He was simply free. Years ago, he would have been panicking, updating resumes, calling contacts, spinning in anxiety. But today, he didn't feel broken. He felt reborn. For the first time in his adult life, he looked around and felt something rare and sacred. True freedom. Not the kind of freedom that comes from money or success or praise, but the kind that comes from knowing who you are and no longer needing the world to remind you. He smiled softly as he scribbled a note to himself in his journal. "I am no longer the insecure man who needed everyone's approval to feel worthy. I am the man who knows that peace begins where permission ends." And that is everything. The meaning of Gabriel's story. Gabriel's transformation isn't just an inspiring story, it's a mirror for every one of us who has ever felt lost in the noise of other people's voices. A reflection of what Carl Jung so eloquently described as the path of individuation, the sacred process of becoming who we truly are. Gabriel's journey is not unique because it's rare. It's unique because he chose to walk it while most of us stay stuck, afraid to confront the parts of ourselves we've buried. In the beginning, Gabriel was like many of us. He lived on a roller coaster of external validation. His mood, his energy, even his sense of self rose and fell based on how others treated him. If people praised him, he felt valuable. If they criticized him, he spiraled into self-doubt. Sound familiar? That's because, as Jung observed, society doesn't teach us to know ourselves, it teaches us to please others. From childhood, we are conditioned to believe that our worth lies in approval. We learn to perform, to please, to perfect, because only then are we loved, seen, accepted. This creates an invisible cage. We become addicted to validation and terrified of rejection. And slowly, without realizing it, we stop living for ourselves. We live for applause. And worse, we start mistaking silence for failure. But Jung offered a hard and liberating truth. The external world is unstable. If your peace depends on something outside of you, whether it's a job title, a relationship, or someone's opinion, you will always be vulnerable. You will always be at the mercy of circumstances. Gabriel's suffering didn't come from his boss's words or Carolina's doubts. It came from what those words touched inside him: unhealed wounds, deep insecurities, a belief that he wasn't enough. Jung taught, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. So when Gabriel felt crushed by criticism, it wasn't because his boss had power, it was because Gabriel hadn't yet accepted the parts of himself that felt inadequate. When Carolina pulled away emotionally, it hurt so deeply because his identity was still tied to being wanted, needed, and affirmed. And this, right here, is the turning point in all of our lives. The world only affects us when it touches the wounds we refuse to heal. Understanding the shadow, Jung's deepest lesson. At the heart of Gabriel's awakening was his confrontation with the shadow. In Jungian psychology, the shadow is the part of ourselves we reject or deny. It holds our fears, our shame, our unmet needs. It's everything we don't want to admit to ourselves. In Gabriel's case, the shadow was made of insecurity, fear of failure, and a desperate need for approval. But instead of owning it, he projected it. He saw his boss as harsh. He saw Carolina as distant. He blamed them for the pain that was coming from within. The breakthrough came when he stopped pointing outward and turned inward. So how did he change? He didn't change the world. He didn't change his boss. He didn't force Carolina to behave differently. He changed his relationship with his emotions. The first and most powerful step was this: Gabriel learned to observe, not react. When something triggered him, he no longer let it take over. Instead, he asked, why is this affecting me so much? What part of me feels threatened right now? In those questions, he created space. And in that space, he found freedom. As Jung wrote, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Gabriel had spent years being driven by unconscious beliefs. I'm not good enough. I need people to like me. If they're upset, it must be my fault. But when he brought those beliefs into the light, they lost their grip, rewriting the narrative. Another monumental shift was Gabriel's decision to reinterpret reality. Before, every criticism felt like a personal attack. Now, it became a question: is this true? Or is this just their perspective? This simple reframe took the sting out of other people's opinions. He no longer gave their words the power to define him. He questioned their authority over his reality. This is a lesson all of us can apply immediately. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment on number 3 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. When someone judges you, ask, does this define me, or is it just their lens? When someone withdraws their affection, ask, am I less lovable now, or am I just not their story anymore? When someone fails to see your worth, remind yourself, their blindness has nothing to do with my light. The beauty of individuation. What Gabriel experienced is what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole, integrating your shadow, and emerging as your truest self. It's not easy. It requires unlearning. It requires grief. It requires honesty. But it leads to something extraordinary: self-possession. The ability to walk into any room, face any challenge, hear any opinion, and remain at peace. That's what Gabriel found. And now, it's your turn. Are you ready to stop letting the world define your worth? Are you willing to stop reacting and start reflecting? Are you brave enough to face your shadow and make peace with the parts of yourself you once ran from? If so, you're already on your way. Because the moment you begin to observe your pain, instead of becoming it, that's the moment you begin to heal. The courage to become who you truly are. For Carl Jung, individuation is not just a lofty spiritual idea, it is the soul's deepest calling. It's the process of peeling away the masks we wear to meet expectations, to be loved, and to feel safe. It's about shedding the layers that society, family, and fear have placed upon us until what's left is raw, real, and unmistakably you. In the beginning, Gabriel's life was shaped by a silent desperation to be liked, to be accepted, to avoid rejection at any cost. Like many of us, he thought peace came from approval and praise. But as he walked through the fire of emotional reactivity and self-doubt, he began to see the truth. You cannot build your identity on applause. You cannot find your worth in the ever-changing weather of other people's opinions. And most importantly, you cannot become whole while still trying to be who others expect you to be. Letting go of the desire to be accepted by everyone is one of the hardest things we will ever do. Why? Because from a young age, we're taught that love is conditional, that if we're good, polite, successful, attractive, or agreeable, we'll be approved of. But Jung saw this as a dangerous trap, because the moment we start chasing acceptance, we abandon authenticity. Here's a powerful question to ask yourself right now. If I no longer cared what anyone thought of me, how would I live? How would I speak? How would I dress? What would I create? Write down the answers. Read them aloud. Let them shake you. Because of those answers, they might be the truest version of you that you've ever met. The power of the present moment. One of the greatest breakthroughs in Gabriel's transformation came when he discovered something we all know, but rarely practice. Peace is not found in the past or the future. It lives in the now. Before, Gabriel spent much of his life lost in two timelines, regretting the past or fearing what was to come. He replayed mistakes like broken record sand, rehearsed catastrophes that never even happened. But none of that ever gave him peace. It only created anxiety. And then something changed. He stopped fighting the present moment and started accepting it. When he was laid off, he could have spiraled, but instead, he breathed, grounded himself, and moved forward with calm, not chaos. Carl Jung emphasized this often. It's not the event itself that causes our suffering. It's our resistance to what is. We cling to what's familiar, even when it hurts us, because we fear what we can't control. But transformation requires surrender. It requires letting go of our tight grip on life and trusting that what we face is not here to destroy us, but to refine us. Gabriel could have labeled his job loss as a failure, but instead, he chose to see it as an invitation to evolve. That leads us to another soul-shifting practice. Exercise. Reframe the storm. Think about a difficult situation you've recently gone through. Maybe it was rejection, betrayal, loss, or uncertainty. Now ask yourself this question: how can I see this as an opportunity rather than a problem? This shift alone can turn despair into direction. It can lift you out of victimhood and into purpose. When Gabriel started doing this, life stopped happening to him and began happening for him. He realized something that changed everything. True freedom doesn't come from controlling the world, it comes from mastering your reaction to it. He stopped saying, "Why is this happening to me?" and started asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" And from that space, peace was born. The real work, facing the shadow. To truly change, Gabriel had to do something we all fear: confront the darkest parts of himself. Before his awakening, every criticism wounded him deeply. When his boss pointed out his flaws, it felt like confirmation of his inadequacy. When others mocked him, it was like they were exposing something shameful he was already hiding from himself. But when Gabriel read Jung's concept of the shadow, it all clicked. The shadow is the part of ourselves we reject, our insecurities, our hidden anger, our fear of not being enough. The parts we're too afraid to face, so we project them onto others. Gabriel's healing began the moment he stopped fighting his shadow and started embracing it. He realized, if that criticism hurts, it's because a part of me already believes it might be true. Exercise, face the mirror. Make a list of the criticisms that affect you the most. Then ask yourself, is this something I secretly fear is true about me? If the answer is yes, don't judge it. Don't run from it. Sit with it. Hold it like a scared child, because healing begins not in rejection, but in recognition. Gabriel didn't silence his insecurities. He saw them, he honored them, and by doing so, he took away their power, letting go of ego, the greatest freedom. Jung taught that the ego is the mask we wear to navigate the world, the polished image, the curated identity, the part of us desperate to be liked. But the ego is fragile because it isn't real. It's who we think we should be, not who we are. Gabriel lived most of his life in ego. He believed he had to be seen a certain way to be worthy. But every time someone challenged that image, he crumbled, until he let the mask fall. He stopped saying, "I'm a successful employee. I'm a partner. I'm liked," and started saying, "I am a soul, learning, growing, evolving. I am enough, no matter how the world sees me." That's when he became unshakable. How Gabriel changed, and how you can too. So, how did Gabriel go from being emotionally reactive to profoundly free? He stopped looking for safety in other people's eyes and started finding it in his own. He stopped reacting from fear and started responding from wisdom. He stopped rejecting his darkness and started integrating it. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment on number 4 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. He stopped asking the world to approve of him and started approving of himself. You can do this too. Start by noticing when you give away your peace. Pause when you want to lash out. Question your thoughts instead of blindly believing them. Welcome your fears instead of running from them. And most of all, ask yourself every day, if I were free from the need for validation, what would I do next? Then do it, even if it's small, even if it's quiet, even if no one claps. Because when you live in alignment with your truth, that's where joy begins. That's where freedom lives. Practical exercises for emotional mastery, applying Jung's principles in your life. Practical exercise. Every time you receive criticism or praise, before reacting, pause and ask yourself, does this change who I am? It's so easy to let someone's words dictate how we feel about ourselves. If someone praises you, it might feel uplifting, but does it truly define your worth? If someone criticizes you, it can feel devastating, but does it change your true essence? The truth is, your worth never changes based on what anyone else thinks of you. No one has the power to define you unless you allow them to. This is something Gabriel deeply understood when he stopped identifying with his ego and began seeing his true self, his soul, as something that was independent of external validation. The external world may reflect certain truths about you, but it doesn't define you. The power of presence, living in the now. Before his transformation, Gabriel was a prisoner of his thoughts. His mind constantly raced between the past and the future. He worried about things that hadn't happened yet and endlessly replayed past mistakes, wondering if they were defining him in some irrevocable way. But Jung teaches us that suffering arises when we disconnect from the present moment. Gabriel learned that the now was the only time where peace existed. By focusing on the present, his anxiety gradually faded. He wasn't lost in what-ifs anymore, he was simply present, alive, and aware. This became his most powerful practice. Practical exercise. The next time you feel anxious or overwhelmed, stop and ask yourself, what's happening right now? Focus on your breathing, feel the air against your skin, and notice the sounds around you. Come back to the moment. Reclaim your presence. When you can focus on the now, the past and the future lose their power to control you. Gabriel learned to live in peace, not tomorrow, not yesterday, but right now, reinterpreting criticism, seeing it as an opportunity. In the past, Gabriel was like many of us. He saw criticism as a personal attack. It triggered feelings of shame, inadequacy, and self-doubt. Every time someone pointed out a flaw, he believed it meant something was wrong with him. But Gabriel learned to look at criticism through a different lens. He began to see it not as an insult, but as an opportunity for growth. Instead of defending himself or feeling hurt, he now asked himself, could there be some truth to this? Is there something here that can help me grow? This shift was revolutionary for Gabriel. Criticism lost its sting because he stopped resisting it. He learned that it wasn't the criticism that hurt him, it was his attachment to the idea that he had to be perfect in others' eyes. Practical exercise. The next time someone criticizes you, instead of immediately reacting, ask yourself, could there be a lesson in this for me? Is there a truth here that I can learn from? This practice allows you to take ownership of your emotional response and see challenges as stepping stones to personal growth. Mastering your emotions. From reaction to reflection. Before his transformation, Gabriel allowed his emotions to control him. When someone made him angry, he reacted immediately. When fear crept in, it paralyzed him, and he would freeze, waiting for the storm to pass. But Jung teaches that awareness is the first step to freedom from emotional control. Gabriel learned to step back from his emotions and observe them rather than letting them dictate his actions. Practical exercise. The next time an intense emotion rises within you, don't react immediately. Pause. Breathe. Observe the emotion. Ask yourself, what is this emotion trying to show me? Is it fear? Anger? Sadness? Don't judge it, just observe it. By doing so, you disempower the emotion and reclaim your peace. This practice of emotional detachment allowed Gabriel to take control of his reactions and, ultimately, his inner peace, understanding projections, seeing through the illusion. A profound shift in Gabriel's thinking came when he realized that what others say about us often has nothing to do with us. Instead, it reflects their internal state, their fears, their frustrations, their unresolved issues. When someone insults you or criticizes you, they're not necessarily talking about you, they're projecting their insecurities, judgments, and unresolved wounds onto you. Gabriel stopped taking these projections personally. He saw them for what they were, expressions of others' inner struggles. For example, if someone constantly criticizes you, instead of feeling bad, observe them. Ask, what is this person projecting onto me? It's a shift from defensiveness to curiosity. By learning to understand projections, Gabriel freed himself from the emotional charge others' words once carried. Embracing change, letting go of resistance. When Gabriel was laid off from his job, he could have fallen into panic, despair, or regret. But instead of resisting the change, he accepted it with calm. Jung taught that what we resist persists. The more we fight change, the more it overwhelms us. But when we stop fighting, we find our power. Gabriel saw his job loss, not as a failure, but as an opportunity, a moment to begin a new chapter. He stopped seeing change as something to fear and started seeing it as something to embrace. Practical exercise. The next time you face unexpected change, whether it's a layoff, a move, or a shift in your plans, say to yourself, I accept this as an opportunity for growth. Every change can be a gateway to new beginnings, but only if we stop resisting it. The greatest lesson, inner peace, is a choice. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment on number 5 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. In the end, Gabriel learned something profound. Inner peace is a choice, not a consequence of external circumstances. Many of us search for happiness and peace in external validation, work, relationships, accomplishments. But Jung reminds us that true peace comes from within. Gabriel chose his peace over others' opinions. He chose to stop giving his emotional energy to things outside of himself. Final exercise, ask yourself, if nothing external defined my happiness, how would I find it within myself? Think about the moments that truly brought you peace, not the ones tied to approval or success, but the moments when you were simply present with yourself. Applying Jung's principles in your own life, we've seen how Gabriel transformed from someone who sought validation to someone who found unshakable peace within himself. But now, the question is, how can you apply these principles in your own life? The answer isn't in trying to control others, avoid challenges, or change your external circumstances. The true answer lies in transforming how you interpret reality. As we've explored, Gabriel's growth came through practices like emotional detachment, understanding projections, living in the present, and questioning criticism. But it all started with one powerful realization: you are not defined by others. You are defined by how you choose to see yourself. Here are the practical exercises you can start using today to build an unshakable mindset. Pause before reacting. Every time you receive criticism or praise, ask yourself, does this change who I am? Be present. When anxiety arises, focus on the now. What's happening right now? What can I observe? Reinterpret criticism. Instead of taking it personally, ask yourself, could this criticism be a tool for self-discovery? Observe your emotions. When you feel intense emotions, breathe and ask, what is this emotion trying to teach me? Embrace change. When life shifts unexpectedly, how can I use this change to grow? Choose peace. Remind yourself, my peace is my choice. Nothing outside of me has the power to take it away. Reflection, the path to emotional independence. As we wrap up, I want you to reflect on one question. What would it feel like if nothing outside of me could shake my peace? How would I live differently? This is the journey of individuation that Jung spoke of. It's the process of becoming the most authentic version of yourself, untouched by external forces, rooted in your truth, and free to live as you choose. Choose your peace. Choose to live for yourself, not for the approval of others, and watch your life transform. Exercise 1. Identify your emotional triggers. Carl Jung once said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves, and few truths cut deeper than that. It's easy to blame others for how we feel, to say, she made me angry, or he hurt me. But the real question we must dare to ask is, why did that affect me so much in the first place? If someone's words or actions shake you, it's not just about them, it's about what part of you is still unhealed, what wound they touched that you haven't faced yet. Maybe they triggered rejection from your childhood. Maybe they mirrored a fear you've tried to ignore. Maybe they exposed a part of you that still craves approval. How to apply it? Next time something gets under your skin, don't react. Instead, get curious. Ask yourself, what emotion is this bringing up in me? Insecurity? Fear? Shame? Anger? Have I felt this way before? What experience does this remind me of? What would happen if I simply decided not to give this power over me? Let's say someone ignores you in a conversation, and you feel hurt. Pause and ask, why do I need their attention to feel worthy? Maybe it's not about them at all. Maybe it's about the little version of you who didn't feel seen growing up. When you uncover the real source of your emotional pain, you stop being a victim of others, and you become the master of your inner world. Exercise 2. Practice the pause before reacting. Jung taught that between stimulus and response, there's a sacred space, and within that space lies our greatest power, the ability to choose how we respond. Most people live in reaction mode. If someone insults them, they snap. If someone ignores them, they shut down. It's an automatic chain of emotional slavery. But what if you could break the chain? How to apply it? The next time someone says or does something that would normally trigger you, pause. Just 3 seconds. One deep breath, one quiet moment of clarity, and in that space, ask, is this worth my energy? Is this moment more powerful than my peace? Do I want to react, or do I want to respond with wisdom? You don't have to fight every battle. You don't have to explain yourself to every critic. Sometimes, the most powerful move you can make is to smile and remain unshaken. For example, someone makes a sarcastic remark. The old you might have snapped back, gotten defensive, or let it ruin your day. But now, you take a breath. You feel your heartbeat steady, and you say to yourself, I choose peace. Then you smile, maybe say nothing at all, and walk away with your power still in your hands. Because when you no longer allow people to pull you into emotional chaos, you've already won. Exercise 3. Develop an observer mindset. Another transformative insight from Jung is this: you are not your emotions, you are the one observing them. When you completely identify with your emotions, they control you. You become the anger, you become the fear, and you lose your clarity, your strength, your truth. But when you step back, even just a little, and say, I'm noticing this feeling, something magical happens, you regain control. How to apply it? Every time a wave of intense emotion rises, whether it's grief, jealousy, anxiety, or rage, don't suppress it. Don't run from it, but don't become it either. Instead, pause. Imagine yourself watching a movie. Your emotion is just one scene in the film, not the whole story. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Where do I feel this in my body? Does this emotion define me, or am I simply experiencing it? Try saying this out loud or in your mind. Instead of I'm angry, say I'm observing a sensation of anger. Instead of I'm anxious, say I'm noticing anxiety passing through me. This small shift in language is more than semantics. It's a spiritual practice. It's the beginning of emotional liberation. By becoming the observer, you don't deny your feelings, you dignify them. You hold space for them without letting them hijack your identity. That is where true emotional freedom begins. Together, these 3 exercises form a powerful foundation for emotional mastery. Identifying your triggers gives you insight into your hidden wound. Pausing before reacting gives you space to protect your peace. Observing your emotions gives you the power to stay grounded in your truth. As you begin practicing these steps, remember, this isn't about perfection, it's about progress, about choosing awareness over autopilot, and about giving yourself grace as you grow. Because the moment you stop being ruled by your emotions and start understanding them, that's the moment you truly become free. Exercise 4. Stop giving power to others' opinions. Carl Jung once wrote, "He who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakens." How many of us live asleep, unconsciously chasing approval, terrified of judgment, shaping our choices not by our truth, but by someone else's perception? We wake up wondering what they'll think, what they'll say, how we'll be seen. And yet, what is the value of an opinion that changes with the wind? Here's how to take your power back. Start by making a list of the people whose opinions weigh on you the most. Be honest. Is it a parent? A boss? A partner? A friend? Now ask yourself, why do I give their opinion so much power over my sense of self? What would happen if I stopped caring what they think and started living for me? Then, take a small but bold action. Do something you've been avoiding simply because of fear. Fear of looking foolish. Fear of not being perfect. Fear of disapproval. And observe, nothing terrible happens. Something beautiful happens. You feel free. You feel alive. Because when you stop seeking permission, you start living in your truth. Exercise 5. Accept what you can't change. Jung taught us, what you resist persists. So many of us suffer because we cling to how things should be. We replay painful events, argue with reality, and try to force outcomes that are simply out of our hands. But resistance is a heavy burden. Acceptance, on the other hand, is the path to liberation. How to practice this? Think of something that's been bothering you lately. A situation, a person, a memory. Ask yourself, is this something I can change? If yes, then take meaningful action. If no, then say these words out loud. I choose to accept this instead of resisting it. Example, if someone betrayed you in the past, you have a choice. You can hold on to the bitterness, or you can let it go, not because they deserve forgiveness, but because you deserve peace. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment on number 6 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Acceptance doesn't mean passivity. It means facing reality with clarity, not with denial. It's about navigating life with strength, not trying to force it to be different. Exercise 6. Find your true identity. Jung's concept of individuation is about becoming your true self, not who the world told you to be, but who you were born to be, underneath all the conditioning and expectations. Many people suffer because their identity is borrowed. They think, I'm a kind person, or I'm a successful person, and when life challenges those labels, they feel lost. So how do you find who you are? Make a list of all the labels you use to define yourself. Then ask, who am I beyond these roles, these masks? Write this down and let it sink in. I am a soul in constant evolution. My worth doesn't depend on how others see me, it lives in who I am becoming. When you do this, you begin to realize that you are not your job. You are not your social status. You are not the expectations others place on you. You are a divine work in progress, and no label can contain you. Exercise 7. Redefine success and failure. We live in a world that teaches us to fear failure and chase external success. But Jung redefined success not as being accepted by others, but as living authentically according to your essence. What does success mean to you, truly? Take a quiet moment and ask yourself, what does success feel like in my soul? Am I living according to my definition of success or someone else's? If you realize your life is misaligned, it's not a failure, it's a signal, a wake-up call. And you have the power to make new choices that reflect your truth, not someone else's map. Write your new definition. Let it be sacred. Let it be yours. Because real success isn't about being liked. It's about being free, the inner shift where true change begins. By applying these 7 exercises, you're not just shifting your behavior, you're transforming your consciousness. You're stepping into a new way of living, where your peace no longer depends on who approves of you, where your joy is not held hostage by circumstances, and where your power comes from within. I choose my peace above all. That sentence alone can become a mantra that guides your daily decisions. Up next, advanced exercises for real-life application. So far, we've explored the foundations of emotional resilience, the principles that help Gabriel rise above fear, insecurity, and ego-driven living. But now, it's your turn to go deeper, because real transformation doesn't stop at understanding. It begins when you apply these truths in the messy, beautiful, unpredictable moments of real life. In the next part, we'll walk together through advanced exercises that take Jung's philosophy and put it into motion in your workplace, your relationships, your inner dialogue, and even your spiritual practice. You'll learn how to navigate difficult conversations without losing your center, detach from toxic dynamics, and reclaim your energy. Create rituals for daily self-alignment, and most of all, become the strongest version of yourself, not in appearance, but in presence. Let's dive in. Are you ready? Exercise 8. Break old emotional patterns. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." So many people live in repetitive emotional loops, cycling through the same arguments, the same types of toxic relationships, the same painful outcomes, without realizing they're not cursed. They're just unconscious. How to apply it? Start by identifying a painful pattern that keeps showing up in your life. Maybe you always feel abandoned. Maybe you always lash out when criticized. Maybe you keep attracting people who don't respect you. Ask yourself, what part of me keeps inviting this experience into my life? What wound is this situation trying to expose? Then here's the powerful part. Change your response. The next time the same situation arises, do something different. Choose calm instead of chaos. Speak instead of staying silent. Walk away instead of chasing, because when you respond differently, you break the pattern, and suddenly, what once felt like fate becomes a choice. Exercise 9. Accept your flaws, so no one can use them against you. Jung once said, "What you resist not only persists, but will grow in size." So many people walk around terrified someone will find them out, will discover their quirks, flaws, secrets, or weaknesses. But here's the truth. What you hide becomes your prison. What you accept becomes your power. How to apply it? Make a list of the things you try to hide or are afraid others will notice about you. Then ask, why am I ashamed of this? Who told me this was unacceptable? Now take your power back. Say aloud, gently but firmly, this is part of me. I no longer need to hide it. I am not perfect, and I don't have to be. Example, if someone tells you you're too quiet, and it hurts, it means you haven't accepted that part of yourself. But if you've owned it, you can say, yes, I enjoy silence. It's where I find clarity. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment number 71 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Suddenly, the insult has no teeth. It vanishes. Because when you own your truth, no one can use it against you. Exercise 10. Learn to see criticism as information, not attacks. Most people react to criticism like it's a dagger to the heart. But Jung taught that criticism only hurts when it touches an unhealed part of us. Criticism isn't always cruel. Sometimes it's a mirror. Sometimes it's noise. But it's never stronger than your awareness. How to apply it? The next time someone criticizes you, don't flinch. Don't fight. Just observe. Ask, is there any truth here? Is this useful feedback, or is this just their projection? If it's helpful, thank them and grow. If it's not, let it float away like a cloud. You can even respond with a calm, thank you for your opinion. Example, if someone says, you're too immature, instead of getting defensive, ask, is there a part of me that still needs to grow up, or is this just how they see me? The moment you stop taking criticism personally, you stop handing people the keys to your self-worth. Exercise 11. Own your narrative. Jung said, words are powerful. What you tell yourself becomes your world. Most people don't realize they're hypnotizing themselves every day with limiting beliefs. They say things like, I'm not smart enough, or I'll never be happy, and their minds believe it because the subconscious doesn't argue, it obeys. How to apply it? Write down every negative belief you catch yourself thinking. Then ask, where did this belief come from? Who taught me to speak to myself this way? Now, rewrite your story. For example, change, I'll never succeed, to I'm still learning, and I improve every day. Change, I'm not good enough, to I am enough. I'm evolving. I'm human, and that's beautiful. Because when you change your inner dialogue, you don't just feel better, you live better. Your outer world begins to reflect your new inner narrative. Exercise 12. Learn to ignore what you can't control. Jung said, the greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of its parents. But just as heavy as the burden we carry when we try to control what we never could, so much of human suffering comes not from events, but from the need to control them. How to apply it? Make a list of everything currently causing you stress, anxiety, or mental exhaustion. Divide the list into 2 columns, things I can control, things I cannot. Then commit to letting go of everything in the second column. Say aloud, I release what I cannot control. My energy belongs to what I can change. Example, you can't control what people think of you, but you can control how much space they occupy in your mind. You can't control the weather, but you can choose to find beauty in the storm. When you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, you reclaim your peace. Exercise 13. Let go of the need for approval. Approval is a drug. It feels good in the moment, but the high doesn't last. And worst of all, it keeps you from being who you are. Jung taught that true freedom begins the moment you stop caring what others think. How to apply it? Think of one thing you've been avoiding, simply because you're afraid of being judged. Then do it, on purpose. As a declaration of freedom, maybe it's singing in public, wearing something bold, speaking your mind, sharing your story. Do it not for attention, but for liberation. Then observe, the world didn't end. The judgment you feared was an illusion, because once you realize others' opinions don't define you, you become untouchable. Exercise 14, learn to live without expectations. Jung said, suffering is caused not by what happens, but by our expectations of what should have happened. We suffer not because life is cruel, but because life doesn't always meet the picture we had in our minds. We expect love to look a certain way. We expect people to never change. We expect certainty in a world that promises none. How to apply it? The next time you feel disappointed, heartbroken, or angry, pause, breathe, and say aloud, I accept this reality instead of fighting it. Then shift your question from why me to what is this here to teach me? For example, if someone lets you down, don't spiral. Accept that people are human. Let them be who they are and set your boundaries without bitterness. Happiness doesn't come from getting what we want. It comes from letting go of what we thought we needed in the first place. You are now the author of your life. These final exercises bring everything full circle. You've learned how to break emotional patterns, accept your shadow, reframe criticism, rewrite your internal story, let go of control, release the need for approval, and flow with reality, not against it. And in doing so, you've stepped into something profound, emotional freedom. Jung didn't teach us to become perfect. He taught us to become whole. He didn't say you'll never be hurt. He said you'll know what to do when you are. I choose my peace above all. I choose to grow instead of react. I choose to live not through others' eyes, but through my soul. Up. Next, advanced real-life applications. In the next section, we'll move beyond inner work and explore how to apply these principles in real-life scenarios, relationships, careers, family dynamics, and more. Because the real test of transformation doesn't happen in meditation. It happens in traffic, in meetings, in heartbreak, in conflict. And when you can walk through those moments calm, aware, and whole, that's when you know you've become unshakable. Shall I continue with the advanced real-life application section now? Thank you for sticking with me through this entire journey. By now, you've learned how to transform your emotional responses and take back your power. You've discovered that it's not the external world that controls your peace. It's the way you choose to respond to it. You've learned that emotional mastery is a skill, one that can be honed with patience, self-awareness, and the willingness to embrace your true self. So, what have you learned so far? What one thing will you practice from this video and incorporate into your life moving forward? Please take a moment to leave your comment below and share with us the lesson you found most powerful. And if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more transformative content that will help you grow and live with true emotional freedom. Remember, your peace is yours to choose, and when you stand in your truth, nothing can shake you.